Hello. So today on my Visions and Voices Together Facebook page, I'm going to be talking about multiple intelligences combined with universal design for learning. But first, I wanted to ask you, do you ever wake up and you have that song in your head and you just can't get it out of your head? Well, guess what song I woke up to this morning? It was Down by the Bay, where the watermelons grow. Back to my home, I dare not go, for if I do, my mother will say. Have you ever seen a whale with a polka-dotted tail? Down by the bay. Now, you might be wondering, Charmaine, why did you wake up with this Raffy song, Down by the Bay, in your head? Well, because I'm thinking about multiple intelligences. And it's something that made teaching so much fun for me, and I think kept all my students really engaged. So, in second grade, Annie Anderson, if you're watching, remember we always had a watermelon unit at the beginning of the year. And as a team, we would always try to brainstorm several different ways that we could teach kids the concepts in our units. So, our watermelon unit, besides having fun eating the watermelon, we did a variety of things. Like for math, we went outside with our watermelon slices, got a seed in our mouth and spit it out. And then with adding machine tape, yes, probably adding machine tape doesn't even exist anymore. But with adding machine tape, we would roll it out and the students would mark how long their seed had gone, cut it off, and that was a strip that they could save to measure later. So it was a fun way to get outside, but for the kids to work on measurement in a totally different way, instead of sitting in our room with plastic rulers. So that was our math way that we integrated. But then we had a book, The Enormous Watermelon. And what I love teaching with first and second graders is our big books. And I don't know, teachers, if they still use big books today, but it was The Enormous Watermelon was a very engaging story that was part of our linguistic way of approaching our watermelon unit. We did other things for math. We would make a guess on what we thought the circumference of the watermelon was. Each child would guess and roll out a piece of twine and cut it off, and we would graph the pieces of twine and see, hey Kelly, see how long or short our guesses were as far as what the actual circumference of the watermelon. So we just had a wonderful way to integrate things. And that's what I would love to see in our classrooms today. And we're going to be talking about that. But I thought what I would do is I pulled off some books from my bookshelf that have to do with multiple intelligences. Now this one is written by Thomas Armstrong. I just ordered one of his new ones, and it's supposed to come today. So we'll see when it arrives. But this one is called Awakening Your Child's Natural Genius, Enhancing Curiosity, Creativity, and Learning Ability. And what's nice about this is written for parents, but I always tell teachers, read books that are written for parents. And I tell parents, read books that are written for teachers. We need to kind of cross-populate our knowledge, or pollinate, right? So I wanted to read the foreword in this book. Is written by Sherry Lewis, who, if you're as old as I am, you remember Sherry Lewis and her little friend Lamb Chops. But Sherry Lewis says, the title of this book makes two assumptions, and I love them both. 1, your child possesses a genius that is asleep, however deeply. 2, adults still have the ability to guide the attitudes and activities, therefore the development and destiny of their youngsters. So that's what we forget sometimes, I think, is that innate genius, those extraordinary or extraordinary gifts that each of our kids have. And so today, when I'm on my Visions and Voices Together page, we're going to be talking about multiple intelligences. Now, the other thing that I wanted to share was, this is another Thomas Armstrong book, and it's called In Their Own Way, Discovering and Encouraging Your Child's Personal Learning Style. And even though this doesn't have multiple intelligences in the title, it is a book all about multiple intelligences. So what also I found really interesting is I heard Thomas Armstrong speak at a Peak Parent Conference decades ago. And one of the things that he talked about is also in this book. So I wanted to just share this part with you. And this is from In Their Own Way. And he talks about how culture defines who's, quote, disabled. In our culture, things like verbal linguistic ability, logical mathematical abilities, those are highly recognized and kind of, types of intelligences that we revere in our Western culture. However, Thomas Armstrong talks about, if you live in another culture, guess what? There's other types of intelligences that are really important there. So he gives the example of Nigeria, and he says, for example, there, musical and bodily kinesthetic intelligences are highly developed. By the age of 5, the children of that society can sing hundreds of songs, play numerous percussion instruments, and just have this ability to perform complex dances. So if you are in that African community, the body kinesthetic intelligence and the musical intelligences, those are the two that are most revered in that culture. And then he gives the example of in Eskimo cultures, and he says that spatial intelligence is a major strength because the Eskimos place a high survival value on noticing the subtle differences in snow and ice surfaces because they don't want to be on the wrong side of a chunk of ice as it flows off into the ocean. Well, how about South Sea cultures? If you live on an island in the South Seas, the ability to build a canoe and steer it and navigate it by the stars, that is what you need the most there to be successful. So it's that body kinesthetic and it's spatial intelligence. And that's what's really important. So if you think about how our culture, let me see if I get rid of this calendar notice. I hate when these things come up, right? Oops, now I lost my video. Let's see if I can. If you look at the culture that we live in, that really has such an influence and determines who is considered somebody with a disability, right? So if we went to the South Sea Islands and we didn't have a very good spatial intelligence like me, I would have a hard time navigating the water and remembering where my island was and how to get back to it. Or if it was at night and I had to navigate by the stars, that would be, oh, she said, I think you're muted. Oh, that's no good. So let me see here. If you're not hearing me, let me see if I need to turn this up. My volume's up. So Kelly, did that help? Shoot. That's no good if you're just kind of watching this face. Let me know if you can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Anyway, so I want you to keep that in mind. If you have children, if you have grandchildren, I want you to think about the innate genius that they have and how we can tap into that and how we can encourage that. Now, another book that I grabbed off my bookshelf is this one. It's called The 7 Ways of Knowing. And this also is, you know, you can tell that this is an older book because Kelly says she can't hear. Oh, now she can. Okay, cool. I know, it's like, you can tell this book is older. This is probably one of the first books that I bought about multiple intelligences, because back in the day when Howard Gardner was first developing his theory of multiple intelligences, he identified 7. And since then, we've had 2 other types of intelligences added to the list. So if this is something you're interested in, at the top of the hour, I'll be live over on my Visions and Voices Together page. And we're going to dig into all of this in a much deeper way. And, you know, I think about, I think it was 1983 when Howard Gardner from Harvard University first published his work on the different types of intelligences that we all possess. And some of us have, more strengths in one area or the other. But, that was in 1983, and we are in 2018. I'm not strong in math, so I can't figure out how many years ago that was. But it was a lot, right? So it's frustrating sometimes to think of, how slow change comes. And then sometimes it's like how fast the pendulum can swing in education. So I would hope that we can go back to embracing the idea that kids have multiple ways of learning things. If we as teachers can present the information in a variety of ways, if we can give kids choices about how they show us what they've learned. So not just writing the book report, but maybe acting out a play about the book or doing a podcast about the book. So what I really want to encourage parents to do is to know more about things like multiple intelligences. So then when you are talking with your kids' teachers, you can say, I think if, Johnny was able to use some more of his musical ability and, maybe make up a chant about, his addition facts, that he would learn those addition facts in a much easier way. So anyway, I'm going to be over in my official studio in a few minutes here. And then the book that I'm going to be using and kind of giving examples from is called The 7 Ways of Teaching. And again, like I said, that was before we had 2 other types of intelligences added. I don't know if you know what those other 2 are. But if you're curious, join us in a few minutes, Visions and Voices Together, and we will carry on this conversation. So thanks, Kelly, for being here, and everybody else watching live and watching the replay, and we shall see you soon. Bye.